everyone, and welcome to the Training Development Workshop for Accessible Climate Strategies, Climate Change, and Disability Training. I'm Sam, the Director of Programs here at ACS, and I want to start by giving you all a huge thank you for showing up today. We hope that this workshop is useful for you in your work and really appreciate your feedback, which will help us create a final product that really works for the greatest number of stakeholders. So here's a quick overview of the workshop and what we'll cover today. So first, a quick welcome and introduction to Accessible Climate Strategies and the ACS training team, and then an overview of the mission behind this work and a breakdown of the training product itself, followed by a preview of the training content that we've developed, including a slew of example slides. And then we'll follow this with an opportunity for Q&A where we'll answer all your questions about the training content and its design. So we'll then wrap things up with a brief summary of what we covered and then an opportunity for feedback through a post-webinar survey. And so just to note some housekeeping things. So we will be using the chat and the Q&A function throughout the presentation. So take a moment to locate them at the bottom of your Zoom window now. And feel free to post your questions in the Q&A as they come up for you, and we will get to them at that Q&A portion at the end of the workshop. And please feel free to post comments as well. This workshop is also being recorded and will be made available to attendees. So without further ado, Alex is going to start us off with an introduction. Alex, you're muted.
That should have been on housekeeping for me. Thanks, Sam, and thanks everybody for being here today. I founded Accessible Climate Strategies, or ACS, in 2020 after a 6-year stint doing climate justice work at the World Institute on Disability. ACS is the nation's only dedicated disability and climate change consultancy. We fill an unmet need by supporting organizations as they tackle both climate justice and disability justice. ACS uses a fundamentally intersectional approach that helps clients place their work in the larger disability climate puzzle. That way, we help them maximize their impact and better articulate the value of their work. We do this work because people with disabilities are a frontline community in the face of climate change, and because they get disproportionate benefits from well-designed climate action. In the end, our work is more than just important work, it's a moral imperative. The ACS training team consists of Sam and myself. I've been part of the disability community ever since acquiring a spinal cord injury in high school. After getting my master's from UC Berkeley, I became a leading disability climate justice expert at the World Institute on Disability and then Sustain Our Abilities. In addition to my ACS work, I currently serve as a disability expert on the Integrated Climate Adaptation and Resiliency Program's Technical Advisory Council. And my partner in crime for these trainings is Sam Beleutz, who I met during the 2025 Climate-Based Fellowship. Sam, want to introduce yourself to the group?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Alex. So again, I'm Sam, and I'm the Director of Programs here at ACS. And I bring over 25 years of lived experience with disability, which is shaped by my lifelong journeys with JIA and uveitis. I also hold a Bachelor of Science in Natural Resources Conservation from the University of British Columbia, where I majored in global perspectives and produced an undergraduate thesis exploring the extent of disability representation in Canadian climate reports and academic literature. As an independent climate equity researcher and in collaboration with organizations like We Can, 10 Power, and LEAF, my work has explored the relationships between environmental governance and climate equity. And I worked on issues ranging from forest protection to urban sustainability and renewable energy, with specific considerations of the experiences of people with disabilities, women, and Indigenous communities. As Alex mentioned, I was thrilled to meet him during the fellowship and find that he shared this niche expertise in disability inclusive climate action. So I'm very happy to be pursuing this work further and sharing it with you all today.
Thanks, Sam. Now we'd love to get to know more about you. I'll ask some questions for the group. Please put your answers in the chat and we'll see who's attending today and why you're here. So the first one is, what is your industry and role? Oh, sorry, everyone. Feel free to answer. Sorry about that.
Yes, don't be shy.
Let's see. We've got
Awesome.
yeah, education coordinator for an environmental nonprofit and green stormwater infrastructure, equity analyst at the California Public Utilities Commission, executive director of CCDA. We work on issues related to business accessibility. We've got a sustainability consultant, software technical program and management, another person working in software development and in grad school studying quantum computing and software semantics, program evaluation and policy analysis at Health Policy, and an engagement specialist at the California Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation. Great. And the next one is, what part of disability and climate change are you most interested in?
If you're not sure yet, that's totally okay too. That's why we're here.
Oh, the second question is, what part of disability and climate change are you most interested in? Great. I got accessibility background, but uh, not too versed in climate and here to learn about the intersection. April said building resilience and cross collaboration. Megan said interest in advocating for accommodations and how disability justice is integral to equity work.
Mm. I think that really gets into our next question, Alex.
Yep. So the next question then is, what drew you to this workshop? I think everyone feel free to just look through the answers here. We will certainly look at them as well.
Should we do our fun one, Alex?
I think so. And the next one is our favorite. Just to break the ice a bit, is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Okay, so
Uh,
while you guys are answering that last one, I think I'll go ahead and get started on our first talking point here. Oh, yes, teleportation. That would be great. I do not like having to get through Toronto traffic, let me tell you. Okay, so I'm going to start us off with our mission and product overview. So before we proceed, it'll be helpful for you all to get a sense of our motivations and why we're working so hard on all this. So starting with the importance of this work, people with disabilities are some of the first and hardest hit by the climate crisis, yet are largely ignored in climate policy, climate education, and climate justice. Where disability in climate work does exist, it largely treats climate change as a disaster management issue while overlooking other important topics and intersections. There is a pressing need for a comprehensive training that covers multiple intersectional issues and approaches disability climate justice with nuance. A well-designed training will include topics like climate migration, the unique challenges faced by people with disabilities during displacement, ableism in environmental movements, and the importance of disability-forward sustainable urban planning. Our trainings cover that and much more. So, accessible climate strategies comprehensive trainings will equip diverse actors with the knowledge needed to develop their own disability forward climate action. Using this shared understanding, we can build a resilient coalition committed to safeguarding the lives, health, and well being of people with disabilities as climate change intensifies. Now, moving on to the value of this training, you will get a tremendous amount of value out of attending these. Our trainings will empower trainees and their organizations to lead their fields at the intersection of climate action and disability justice. They will be able to pursue new initiatives with concrete benefits for people with disabilities. For example, creating climate conscious disaster readiness programs designed for the disabled population. They will also develop more effective and widely adopted policies and programs and better program design with more effective advertising to reach more people. And NGOs will also be able to supercharge their fundraising by highlighting their work's importance for disability climate justice and will secure new funding streams, including grants, loans, and contracts. Attendees and organizations will also be able to have a heightened public profile as their professional and organizational impact grows. And finally, they'll be able to expand their professional networks within and between organizations and maximize the collective impact of everyone involved. Now, in terms of the impact that this will all have, we anticipate a pretty big impact as more people attend and act on what they've learned. That's because our trainings will produce a growing number of informed practitioners, advocates, and organizations tackling disability climate justice. This will lead to lives saved in the face of climate impacts, whether that's disaster readiness or more resilient healthcare systems. People with disabilities will have an improved quality of life, resilience, and sustainability. There will be more engagement and representation of people with disabilities throughout climate processes, from reinforcing public transit to greening the grid. And this will come from disabled trainees getting more involved themselves and from able-bodied trainees learning how to engage the disability community in their climate efforts. From this, well-informed advocates will be able to reduce climate austerity and protect systems central to the well-being of people with disabilities, such as social services, healthcare, and public transportation. And finally, there will be less eco-ableism as attendees challenge their own preconceptions and those of fellow climate advocates. This will lead to stronger inclusion of people with disabilities in climate movements, reduce ineffective and exclusionary approaches to sustainability, and result in an overall increase in disability climate justice worldwide. So with that, we want to give you a overview of our proposed offerings and agenda. So at the end of today, we will be asking for your input on some of these proposed training options. In the end, we plan to develop multiple training products, but your responses will help us decide which to really focus on first. So we have two format options, an organizational training and an individual certificate-based training. Each format has 3 duration options, a half day, a full day, or a 2-day. And starting with the organizational training, this would bring your team together for an engaging live session led by the ACS team. And this is designed for government agencies, nonprofits, businesses, and associations. And this product includes access to a full recording so that you can reuse it as part of your ongoing internal team development. And with this option, you'll be saving on per attendee costs compared to individual training options. and gain high quality shareable materials for your organization. And you can choose the length of training that most suits your team's time and budget. And because everyone will get the same material, you can act as an informed team on new projects, products, actions, and other organizational changes. Now, in terms of the individual training option, this will be designed for professionals looking to gain insights and practical knowledge that will position them to become a leader in climate equity. This product option would be ideal for individual consultants, specialists, advocates, or very small teams. And you will be able to join live sessions or learn at your own pace with access to recordings, slide decks, and a resource library and interactive trainee forum. And attendees of this option will get a certificate of completion that they can use on LinkedIn, on resumes, or any variety of professional settings. And with this, you'll be able to network with other professionals and organizational leaders, build coalitions, and set the groundwork for future collaboration. So attendees will also be able to upgrade to a longer training recording and materials by paying the difference in base cost if you decide that you want to dive even deeper. So with that, we want to let you know what the breakdown of the training is so far. And so our training will start by introducing foundational concepts, the unique impacts that the climate crisis has on people with disabilities, and the many ways that stakeholders can integrate disability justice and climate mitigation and resilience. The topics covered in the 1 and 2 day trainings are the same. So we introduce the basics of climate change and climate action, the basics of disability and disability justice, and our framework for analyzing these disability and climate connections. We then take a deep dive into 6 key categories of climate impacts and how they disproportionately harm people with disabilities, and host a group discussion on the key risks and impacts most relevant to your work or community. We then explore how to shape both climate mitigation and resilience to maximize the well-being of people with disabilities, followed by another discussion on your work and concrete climate justice actions and goals. So compared to the 1 day training, the 2 day training provides additional opportunities to answer questions, exchange ideas, and reflect on how to incorporate these insights into your work. Now, moving on to what the half-day training will include. The half-day training will be a tightened up version, really, of the previous material. So it follows the same structure, but consolidates the content into slightly different categories, which are shown here. And similarly, the discussions and Q&A will be a little bit shorter, but still cover the most important takeaways that you really need to know to prepare you or your organization for action. So to give you a better understanding of what the training will actually look like, Alex is going to take you through a preview of the training content that we've developed, and I'm really excited to share it with you all. Take it away, Alex.
Thanks, Sam. So as Sam mentioned, we want to give you all a preview of the training, including the 3 main sections, our disability and climate overview, a deep dive into climate impacts and disability, and a deep dive into climate action and disability. The training starts with an introduction to disability and an intro to climate change, then shows how they are connected. Here you can see some key aspects of disability we cover in the training. We cover rates of disability, how disability diversity includes discrimination against us, different categories and medical conditions, intersections with other characteristics, and personal disability identity and comfort with self-advocacy. And finally, the map on the right shows rates of disability in US states. It's notable that California, which is the focus of our first round of trainings, has one of the lowest rates of disability in the country, largely due to the housing shortage and exorbitant cost of living here. Next, we give an introduction to climate change and its impacts across the country. These include environmental impacts like hotter temperatures and precipitation changes, plus societal impacts like agricultural losses, food insecurity, and health risks. Each training introduces these climate impacts and then explains how they affect people with disabilities. Additionally, ACS trainings for specific states or regions will highlight climate impacts in those regions. For example, our California training will mention Pacific storms and the increasingly ferocious forest fires out west. And here's the meat and potatoes of the intersection of climate change and disability. One column of climate factors and one column of disability factors with connecting lines between them. There are countless climate factors and countless disability factors, meaning the potential connections between climate and disability are endless. We drive this slide home because it will help trainees understand the full intersection between disability and climate change, put their own work in context, and recognize that even if they only address one of these diagonal lines, they are still making a difference in the larger scheme of things. Here's an example looking at the intersection of transportation, mobility disabilities, and climate change. Let's just cover the intersection of the top bullet point from each circle. On the top left, climate impacts like storms and power outages can lead to interrupted service in public transit systems. With mitigation and resilience in the top right circle, we can actually reinforce transportation infrastructure so it withstands climate shocks. In the bottom circle, we show that people with mobility disabilities have higher rates of public transit use than able-bodied folks do. Taken together, these three circles show that folks with mobility disabilities are disproportionately harmed by service disruptions caused by climate change and get disproportionate benefits from investments in transit resilience. So that's intersectionality. The presentation then does a deep dive into climate impacts and how they affect the disabled population. Here's a list of topics we cover in the climate impacts section. We tackle extreme weather events and fire, extreme heat events, public health risks and diminished or strained healthcare capacity, economic harm and climate-driven austerity, migration and displacement, and eco-ableism and barriers to advocacy. Each of the sections covers its important consequence and then explains how people with disabilities are affected. For example, many types of disabilities affect people's ability to regulate their body temperature, so extreme heat hits people with those thermoregulation issues especially hard. And here are a few sample slides from that section of the presentation. This is an example from our disaster impact section showing disproportionately high rates of seniors and people with disabilities in the footprints of the January 2025 Los Angeles wildfires. The three census tracts hardest hit by the Eaton fire, for example, had a combined percentage of seniors and people with disabilities almost 50% higher than the state average. This is one of our slides featuring screenshots from the California Department of Public Health's Climate Change and Health Visualization Tool, or CCH-Viz. The charts from CCH-Viz have exposure to climate impacts on the horizontal axis and sensitivity on the vertical axis. Users can select a county's rate of disability as one of the sensitivity categories. CCH-Viz then color codes California counties based on their combined vulnerability or the combination of exposure and sensitivity. This map covers projected extreme heat, showing high combined vulnerability in the central Sierra Nevada and low combined vulnerability in the San Francisco Bay Area and Central Coast. It so happens that some of the most heat-safe counties in the state have very low rates of disability, largely due to their housing crises. Here's a slide on disease transmission, climate change, and disability. We show how climate aggravates disease prevalence and intensity. We explain some major risks for the US and California specifically, and then we highlight extra risks faced by people with disabilities. The right-hand graphic is adapted from an article in Nature Climate Change and shows how climate hazards amplify disease transmission types and types of pathogens. We work to include academic literature and useful graphics as much as possible in our presentations, and this slide is a great example of that. Climate change can also have a huge impact on mental health, and that's especially pertinent for people with disabilities facing greater risk of climate harm. Vig and Develdi discuss climate impacts that can affect people with disabilities' mental health, including our increased vulnerability, displacement-related trauma, social isolation, loss of independence, climate anxiety, and eco-grief. And the bottom image here covers how and what time frame climate change can impact mental health. This is doubly important since mental health conditions tied to climate trauma are often disabilities in their own right. Here's an example from our section on climate change, austerity, and disability. This shows how climate change drives austerity as diminished economic output and productivity lead to reduced taxes, limited spending abilities, and difficult choices. Unfortunately, disability services and supports are often on the early chopping block. This slide shows how people with disabilities are disproportionately likely to delay climate-related migration and remain in a shrinking community with diminishing supports, protections, and quality of life. Meanwhile, people with disabilities who do migrate may encounter diminished accessibility, services, opportunities, protections, and levels of independence. The image on the right shows the extent of nationwide waitlists for home and community-based services, reflecting how difficult it is to move and immediately secure services that are central to independent living. And here's our final example slide from the climate impacts section of the training, which covers the exclusion of people with disabilities in climate discourse. Unfortunately, the exclusion of people with disabilities creates a reinforcing cycle. People with disabilities are under-recognized in mainstream climate narratives, which leads to a lack of research on disability and climate, which in turn creates exclusion from climate processes and advocacy, which then creates a paucity of information on the actual impacts of climate change on us, and then the cycle repeats. Now we get to the last section of the training, which covers disability forward climate mitigation and resilience. In this third of the training, we provide an overview of mitigation, adaptation, and resilience, designing disability inclusive disaster readiness and recovery, disability inclusive migration and relocation, disability and climate forward public health, disability forward urbanism, benefits of renewable energy and clean tech, and shaping disability inclusive climate advocacy. This is a slide from the disaster readiness and response section of the training. We point out that maintaining services and healthcare in the wake of disasters includes initial medical care, evacuation supports, shelter services, public health monitoring, chronic illness management, and the rehabilitation services necessary to support long-term health and independence. Continuing with our first training's focus on California, this slide provides an introduction to the California Department of Public Health's Climate Change and Health Equity branch. Wherever possible, we point trainees toward concrete resources and tools that they can use during their climate equity work. That way, their efforts can truly thrive. Disability forward urbanism is one of my favorite topics in our training. Long story short, well-designed and dense urban environments provide significant quality of life benefits while reducing per capita emissions. And people with disabilities are some of the biggest beneficiaries of smart urban development. For example, modern apartment buildings are the most accessible types of homes out there, and smart urbanism makes car-free life easier. So urban density is a slam dunk for both climate progress and independent living. This slide on disability forward climate tech is from our section on inclusive sustainability. Each of these bullet points shows how climate tech can best support the needs of people with disabilities. For example, climate monitoring and early warning systems should include accessible formats for people with communication disabilities, while sustainable food systems should provide reliable sources of affordable, nutritionally dense, and diverse food options that work for people with food allergies and digestive conditions. This final example covers the globally recognized Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. SDGs, quote, recognize that ending poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve our oceans and forests. Close quote. SDGs that are relevant to the disability community, which we list here, touch on economic inequity, disaster management, and safeguarding marginalized communities. Now I'm going to hand it back over to Sam to wrap things up. Sam, take it away. Oh, you're still muted, Sam.
Darn. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. I really hope that that sparked everyone's imagination on all the good stuff that this training will include and gets you guys thinking about um, how you might benefit from it. So, starting on a summary of what we went over and what that looks like, the information Alex covered in these example slides represents just a small fraction of our training content. We looked at just one slide from each of the 14 training sections, and meanwhile, our in development training deck includes almost 200 slides, so we've got plenty more. We also are going to continue to refine this content so that we can provide the most comprehensive, up-to-date disability and climate change training in the world. And we promise that half-day and full-day trainings won't have the full 200 slides, so as not to overwhelm you. But you will get all the important bits. So in closing, I also just want to reiterate the guiding mission behind all of this work that we've put in. So this training really is important because people with disabilities are largely ignored in climate discourse, and this leads to ongoing harm. We believe that there is a critical unmet need for comprehensive education on disability and climate that can spur effective, widespread change in the policy, academia, and every other sphere. And so this training, in turn, will provide value to the trainees and their organizations by equipping them with the information and strategies needed to enact this change. These trainings will empower stakeholders to raise their impact and, in doing so, position themselves as climate justice leaders within their field and community. And finally, we really design these trainings so that their impact really provides a very clear, concrete benefit to society. They will produce a growing number of informed actors tackling disability climate justice. And with this growing critical mass, they will increase the disability inclusion within climate and sustainability movements and directly improve outcomes and the quality of life for people with disabilities amidst the worsening climate impacts. So with that, I want to switch over to the Q&A. Alex, do you want to get us started on the Q&A? You're muted, Alex. Wow, we should have
This is a
rehearsed the unmute button.
this is a theme, isn't it? Um, thanks,
We'll work
Sam,
on that.
and I hope that what Sam mentioned further sparked everyone's imagination and got you thinking about how many different connections there are between disability and climate change. Now we've reached the Q&A section where you have the opportunity to ask us your questions about the training product and our plans for it in the coming year. So please write your questions in the chat and we'll get through as many as we can. And again, thank you everybody for attending. We really appreciate your time and appreciate that you're interested in this topic.
Okay, Alex, we have our first question.
Do
Will
we?
courses be online or in person?
Courses will be online.
Yes, all
Yep.
virtual. You can attend from anywhere. Will there be opportunities for networking?
Yes, absolutely. During the breakout discussions, there will be opportunities for networking. As Sam mentioned, we will also have an online forum for folks that sign up for the trainings, so that you can continue to network there.
Awesome. And then we have another question here. When do you expect to start the trainings?
We're aiming for the new year for the long comprehensive training. If we work with specific clients, we might be able to get things going even sooner than then too. Our deck is really almost completed for the 2-day training. So if there are interested clients working that want the 2-day training, we can absolutely work with them. It'll take us a little bit more time to trim things down to the half day or full day training.
And kind of in that same vein, Alex, do you want to tell them a bit about how we've crafted our content for California and regional specificity and why that's important?
Yeah. First of all, I'm located in California. As I mentioned, I'm over here in Oakland. A lot of my background is based around California. And we just are aiming, first of all, to have trainings specifically for a California audience. We're doing that for a few reasons. First of all, just kind of our own availability and bandwidth. We think that we can really fill that up with meeting the needs of a California audience. It's a bit of a testing ground. As I mentioned, it's kind of where I live and where I've built a lot of my expertise and my networks. So we will be showing people information, for example, graphs related to California, policies related to California, different organizations, resources, and stakeholders here in the state. And we plan to kind of just take a step back and then replicate a lot of that same kind of content for a national audience soon. So, yeah, we're starting in California. Eventually, we'll back off to do a nationally focused training, and then from there do continued kind of refining and having specific trainings for different geographic areas in the country, and then eventually a global training. This is a startup that we have. We really, really, really believe in the need for a training like this, and California is just a testing ground. So it'll continue to grow. Aaron says, thank you so much. I think this is very important. I'm wondering what level of changes are you pointing attendees to? Thinking about the home and community-based services waitlist example, would you recommend advocacy to change our Medicaid system? What can be done to help the problem in the absence of national policy change? There's a few things, think back to the earlier slide where I have the climate column and the disability column. We want to empower trainees to address any of those connections and to use arguments about disability and climate change to kind of supercharge their advocacy, right? So there, with the HCBS waitlist example, somebody that's in a state that has a longer home and community-based services waitlist should be able to say, hey, you know what? We're one state over from a place that continues to be hit by hurricanes. And we anticipate that there's going to be people that are displaced, but they need to be able to sign up for home and community-based services. We already have a wait list. This is another big reason why we need to chip away at that HCBS wait list to expand our home and community-based services and be a good neighbor for folks with disabilities that might be displaced across state lines. Another example on that same vein is there's the Disaster Relief Medicaid Act which has been introduced but has not yet passed. And this is a piece of legislation that says if there's a federally declared disaster and people are displaced across state lines, that they can continue to access Medicaid and related services when they are displaced. Because right now, if I'm in California and I'm in Northern California, there's a wildfire and I have a family member in Oregon, I can't go across state lines, stay with them, and continue to receive services under Medi-Cal. So we have this kind of balkanized healthcare system for low-income folks and people with disabilities, and we need to be able to say, hey, there's an increasing number of disasters. It's leading to people being displaced across state lines. Here's one example of how someone might have a family member in Oregon, and go from Shasta County up to Oregon. They can't do that right now. Let's pass this legislation so that they can. But knowledge is power, long story short, and we want to give you all and then other trainees the knowledge to supercharge their advocacy, no matter what policy they're pushing toward. We have a little bit of time for extra Q&A. Just anybody feel free to type in your last answers. Otherwise, I think we can wrap things up a little bit early. Sam has a few more uh, uh, things to get through too before we close out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so, again, keep posting any questions that you have, if you think of them near the end here. And otherwise, we can kind of get started on this post-webinar survey. So let's get into the feedback portion. The goal for us is to identify what to prioritize putting our energy into again first. So which trainings we finalize first and which sectors we really focus our marketing on. So we also are hoping to understand how we can best garner interest from target audiences and connect with potential clients. So we've created a quick post-workshop survey so that you can help us develop the best training possible and indicate your interest in connecting further. And so we would really appreciate your insights and we'll use them again to finalize a training that really works for you and has the biggest potential impact to equip you to make change in all your diverse respective fields. So the QR link to access that is here on the slide. And so it should really only take a couple minutes and is very straightforward. And we would really, really appreciate that feedback. And again, we'll be following up with you with a recording of this webinar and an opportunity to connect further.
And I put
Thanks,
that
Laura, for the
survey
call.
link in the chat as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sam. Thank you all for being so engaged, for introducing yourselves early on, and for the great questions here at the end of the training. Thank you all also for filling out the survey. Your feedback will help us to shape a training that improves the well-being of people with disabilities well into the future. You can keep following our work. We're Accessible Climate Strategies on LinkedIn, and our website is www.accessibleclimate.com. You can also email either of us. I'm Alex at accessibleclimate.com. Sam is sam@accessibleclimate.com. And if you all want to stick around for just a minute, I will also drop my Calendly link in the chat so you can book a meeting with me directly. Thanks and have a great day, everyone. I think we'll.
Oh, Evelyn was very kind. I think the gratitude is definitely mutual, and we really appreciate that you guys all are showing so much interest in this, whether that's personally or professionally. Yes, we will get that national training developed as soon as possible. Okay, with that, I think, oh,
And I'm
Alex
finally
put the
dropping
video.
my 60 and 30-minute Calendly links in the chat.
Ah, perfect. Let me just check. Okay, no more questions in the Q&A. Alex, I think we can close it out. Give you guys some time to work on that webinar survey.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great day.